you need to have a termite bond, because when you discover a termite infestation, you need to have somebody that you can hold to account for not doing the service correctly.
This is the Trials Podcast. I'm Aaron Gartlan. We're continuing our conversation today with Tom Campbell. He has some excellent takeaways for you that we're excited to share. One of the things I really enjoy about being a lawyer is talking with the other attorneys like you about the cases you handle day in and day out. And so what I'd like to do now, if you would, could you anchor some of this down with some examples of cases you've handled, and specifically maybe to start, what you would consider your most rewarding or impactful case? Could you share some details about that?
Sure. One of the recent cases that we've handled is a fairly typical case. It was in South Mississippi. It was for a world-renowned doctor in a very hyper-specialized area of medicine. He helps to restore people's faces that have been deformed from chemotherapy or automobile accidents or other tragic events, and he's very good at reconstructing people's faces so that they can live a more normal life. And he owned 2 homes and got termite contracts with the company, and both the homes that he owned were severely damaged by termites, and his damage claims were denied for false reasons. They said he had water leaks in the structures and that the termite bond had a provision in it that said we're not responsible if there's a moisture problem in the home to pay the claim. So he came to us and we litigated that case and went to an arbitration before a lawyer whose background was primarily as a defense lawyer. And he awarded $2.8 million, which, after paying our contingency fee, left enough money left over to give them all the money they could ever need to fix both of their houses, plus some extras. And so they had gone through, at least a couple of years of terrible emotional distress, wondering whether or not they were going to have to cash in their life savings to repair these houses. And we were able to not only get them the money that they needed to fix their houses, but they got to finally relax and realize that they were going to be able to fix their house and retire the way they expected to. This was a responsible person, and they'd saved money for retirement that he was worried that their family was going to have to spend fixing the houses instead of having a comfortable retirement. That was satisfying. I had another case where a foster family that was of extremely modest means bought a house in North Alabama that was, I think they bought for $42,000 out in the middle of the country, because it was the most they could afford to spend to get enough room to help take care of 5 or 6 foster children. And the house was badly damaged at the time they bought it. They did a terrible inspection. This family would be bankrupt. They would be unable to take care of these foster children. And we were able to sue that company and collect enough money for him to go out and buy a better house. And every now and then, that happened a couple of years ago, and every now and then I've seen families out, and it's obvious that the family's a foster family because they don't know the children very well. And I see those kids and I think, I got to help a family like that stay together and provide those kids a place to be raised in safety and comfort. Actually, I made a lot of money off the case in South Mississippi. I probably lost money on the case in North Alabama, But between those cases, the one in North Alabama was more personally satisfying because, it was very clear that our team here made a meaningful difference, not only in the lives of the homeowners, but all the kids they're going to take care of over the next 20 or 30 years.
No, Tom, we definitely appreciate you and the work that you're doing. Could we transition over to maybe your most challenging and most difficult cases? And along with that, I think that would give some examples of the challenges that your clients face, uh, that have termite damage, and the challenges you face representing them.
Well, one of the things that we're doing now, actually, the case I was trying yesterday is for a church, and we're representing a number of churches throughout the Southeast where churches have been severely damaged. And some of these properties are historic properties. They were built 200, 250 years ago. And that was it's been a huge challenge in those cases just to find people that could come in and give us an estimate for doing a historical renovation of some of these properties. Uh, the trade skills that are necessary to fix some of those buildings uh, are just rare in this country anymore. People don't know how to do an Italian fresco that was done 250 years ago that's extremely elaborate, or they don't know where to find a 50-foot long piece of heart pine. I was recently in Paris on a family trip and visited Notre Dame, that's reopened after the fire that they had there a few years ago. And they spent $5 billion restoring Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Well, one of the churches that we represent has severe termite damage in its roof system. And it's likely that the people that are going to fix that church are going to come from Europe, or they're going to come from Chile and other places in South America where they still have enough skilled tradesmen to fix those kind of structures. And it probably took us a couple of 100 hours and a year and a half to track down the kind of experts that we needed to put on credible evidence about what a historical reproduction would cost and entail for those facilities. And when they repair it, they're going to probably have to get visas for these artisans to come in from around the world to fix these facilities. And as I told the arbitration panel, I said our estimate is going to be for a historical reproduction for an architectural treasure that's important for the spiritual life of thousands of people. And the termite company is going to give you an estimate that is based on going to Lowe's and Home Depot and getting whatever's on the shelf to prop the place up. And that's been extremely challenging, not from the legal work, but from managing the damage estimation process.
Yeah,
But it's going to
something.
take tens of millions of dollars to fix some of those properties. Another instance is an assisted living facility that's going to have to be torn down. It's going to displace 90 residents, and and that's going to have to be rebuilt.
Yeah, Tom, I appreciate you sharing that because oftentimes people think they have an open and shut case. And I know you've heard that. We hear it, not realizing that when you go into litigation, you've got to prove your damages. You've got to prove your injuries. You got to prove your damages. And I guess that's part of the challenges that you face for this nursing facility, displacing the residents there, or the church that you're discussing all this intricate woodwork and craftsmanship. You know, these are all damages that you have to prove. And as you're talking through all that, I know you've mentioned termite bonds, termite inspections, and maybe that's something that I should have laid a better foundation earlier on. But could you discuss just the nuts and bolts and what people should know about termite inspections and termite bonds?
First of all, I would say there are a lot of problems in this industry. Probably one of the next questions you're going to ask me is who are the reputable companies that I would recommend people go with? Unfortunately, I don't know reputable companies that I can recommend that people go with, or at least certainly not many. Uh, but people should have a termite bond. And if you provide a liquid termite treatment and you reapply that when it's worn off, because these chemicals only last anywhere from 3 to 7 years at the top end. So not only does your home have to be treated initially, if the termite company is being honest and doing what they need to do, they should be coming to your property every 3 to 7 years and retreating it with hundreds of gallons of chemical that requires drilling your foundation, injecting chemical in all the voids in the foundation. So you need to have a termite bond. Having said that, it's likely that you're going to get a fake termite treatment. But the importance, when you really get down to it as a practical matter, and I like to be practical, is you need to have a termite bond because when you discover a termite infestation, you need to have somebody that you can hold to account for not doing the service correctly. I wish I could tell you, here are the 5 terms you need to look for in a written contract. And if you get a contract that has those terms, you're going to be safe. Every time I talk to a news reporter, that's the story they want to run is tell us what the terms are in a contract that will protect consumers. And my answer is that's not going to be helpful to consumers because it doesn't matter what the terms are in the contract. And if they're good pro consumer terms, if the termite company doesn't do the termite prevention treatment correctly in the first place, and that's the problem in this trade, they don't do that termite treatment correctly in the first place. But it is important to have a termite bond so that when you find termite damage, you can hold that termite company to account. And usually it doesn't matter. One of the things I'd caution your listeners to is when I've said that over the decades that I've been doing this, what consumers hear is, oh, I'm going to need to potentially have to sue my termite company. So I want to go with one of the big companies because they'll have the money and the longevity to pay my claim 10 or 20 years down the road if I have one. Well, the way this industry is regulated, one of the great things that they have to have, especially in Alabama, is they must have insurance coverage. So you can have a mom and pop operation with 2 or 3 employees, and they're going to have an insurance policy that they filed with the state regulators that provides coverage in case you have a severe termite damage claim. So I would tell people that it's okay to go with a local company. Generally speaking, we found that the smaller companies do a better job than the big companies. Uh, so if you go with a company, uh, they're going to have a license. They're going to have insurance company, or it's going to be a huge company like Orkin or Terminix that has plenty of money to pay claims even without insurance.
Tom, is there any other takeaways or anything else you'd like to share with us today?
The main thing that I want people to walk away with is have a termite bond, pay your renewal fee, and when you discover termite infestation, overcome the urge to bury your head in the sand and believe that the problem is small. I have had dozens of cases over the years where people have called me and said, I apologize for calling you. I'll pay you by the hour. Could I get some free advice? I only have $5,000 in termite damage. And we wind up recovering or settling that case for hundreds of thousands of dollars because the scope of the termite problem that they have in their floor system, their ceiling system, or their wall system is massive. And that gives me a lot of satisfaction knowing that I prevented that disaster where somebody has signed a release, gotten a check for $5,000, and then 10 years down the road when they're remodeling a bathroom, they discover half their house needs to be torn down and they don't have a means to recover. So I would just encourage people that it's important to be a skeptic, get in touch with a knowledgeable lawyer, and investigate these claims and treat them seriously. Because it's not going to cost them anything. We don't charge people to go out and do an evaluation of these claims. And 90% of the time when we investigate a claim, it winds up being a good one. So, and we wind up taking it. So, and it doesn't cost the consumer anything. Sometimes we get in that process and the termite company or their insurer agrees to come in and make adequate repairs. And we advise the client, let them do that if they're being fair about the claims handling process, and we don't charge them anything. But we make money on some of the other claims, and so, that winds up being good for me, winds up being good for the consumer.
Well, Tom, one takeaway that I had from a conversation with you maybe a few years ago in discussing a case, something that you shared with me, if by the time, and I believe I'm phrasing this right, but if you would kind of maybe elaborate a little bit, but you said, hey, Aaron, look, if the termites have made it to the baseboard, they've been in the wall for a little while. And again, chances are there's going to be more damage, more than what you can see. Because again, if they've made it to the baseboard, they've been in that wall for a while. Could you elaborate on and talk with us about that?
When you're handling these cases, one of the things that's critically important and to really back up is you've got to understand the biology and behavior of termites. And I've certainly learned more about that than I ever thought I would have to learn. But to go back to fifth grade ant farm experiments, these are social insects. They live in the ground in colonies. They have a queen that produces all of the termites in the colony. It can have hundreds of thousands to several million termites in that colony. But unlike ants, the termites also have workers that actually eat the wood and feed the other colony members. They have soldiers that protect the colony. They have a king and a queen that are the reproductives that make more termites. But all of those termites are different from ants in an important way. Ants have a hard exoskeleton, which is why they can walk around on your kitchen counter and eat your pie without dehydrating and dying. Termites have a porous exoskeleton, and if they're exposed to the air, they'll dehydrate and die in a matter of hours. Because of that biological fact, they cannot do damage where you can see them like an ant colony. And so they're going to crawl up from the ground, eat inside the walls, floor systems, and ceiling systems, and the inside of the wood, not the outside of the wood, the inside of the wood. And they're going to do a serious amount of damage before you can discover those, even with a very thorough inspection. So if you discover a termite infestation, you're going to have serious damage 99% of the time. And that's what I want to leave people with. That's not something that we see happens 5% of the time or 10% of the time. That happens 99 or almost 100% of the time. And especially if you see swarming termites, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you now is this is swarm season in Dothan in South Alabama. Mother's Day weekend is the peak of termite swarm season. That's when some of the termites in the colony grow wings and they fly out of the colony to go establish a new colony and start mating. If you see termites swarming in your house, that means there is a mature termite colony with hundreds of thousands to millions of members that are living somewhere in your house. If you see two swarms, you have two colonies. If you see three swarms, you have three colonies. And so if you see termites swarming in your house, you're going to have a serious problem. And I'm not talking about 20 termites that could fly through a crack in a window or a door or an open surface. But if you've got many dozens of termites or hundreds or thousands of termites flying around in your house, you're going to have a serious termite damage claim that is going to likely cost tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair. Uh, and oftentimes, I mean, we've had probably 2 or 3 dozen cases where somebody's got a typical ranch style house on a slab, and those houses look perfectly fine. They're still in plumb level and square, and termites have eaten through 1 or 2 holes in the ground molding or the sheetrock or a baseboard. And when those termites get in the top plates, which are the horizontal boards that sit on top of the studs in your wall, the termites will eat the spring growth rings and continue to go from one board to the next, eating those. And we have had dozens of cases where virtually the only damage in the house is the top plates. But if they get in there and eat those top plates, it's so costly to take those out and repair them that those are tear downs where those houses have to be torn down. It's cheaper to tear them down and rebuild the house than it is to try to repair those top plates. And so, that's what I would encourage people. It doesn't cost anything for an evaluation of your claim for real experts that don't have an incentive to lie to you to have that evaluated. And that's what consumers should do.
Well, Tom, we really appreciate your friendship. We appreciate you staying in touch with us, the work that you're doing out in our community, and Forrest and I look forward to working with you.
Well, we appreciate you working with us too, and that's one of the things that's important for, people to get with a local lawyer that they know like you that are aware of this scam and know how to handle these on the front end and who they need to get in touch with to handle these. Lawyers are highly specialized now. I'm not going to go represent one of your trucking accident cases or your car wreck cases because I don't know how to do that kind of work. And and I've always said in my career, sometimes the best advice that your lawyer can give you is getting you with a lawyer who is not using training wheels when they're handling your case. And that's the service that we provide to other lawyers like you, is helping you determine, uh, and help you evaluate these cases that are specialized in nature and work with you on a local basis. Because if I'm in Dothan, I want to have somebody like you who knows the judge and has known him for 20 years helping me in that case so that, we know somebody who knows the law in this area, who knows the science in this area, but it's always helpful to have somebody who knows the judge.
Well, again, Tom, thank you so much for being on our program, and we look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thank you.
Forrest, my dad used to say, son, get a good education and help people, and always thought that would take place in the classroom. And I guess when I finally figured out what he meant by that, I thought he was talking about going to college, maybe beyond that. Now, years later, 30 years later, 40 years later, I see that that would take place, or that education would come from the lawyers, the legal professionals, the clients, the cases. And one of the things that I really enjoy, and this was somewhat unexpected for me, is getting to know other lawyers and what they do and how they can help us help our clients. I really enjoyed the conversation with Tom. And one of the takeaways for me, something that I've learned over the years in talking with Tom, attending some of his presentations, is that, for example, if you see termite damage in a baseboard, that didn't just appear overnight, or that just didn't happen overnight. There's a lot going on behind the wall, inside the wall, inside the sheetrock. That infestation has potentially been there for years. And so there's damage beyond that. So what were some of your takeaways today? And
Well, I think a couple of things. One is, like you've mentioned, I think it's so important when you hire an attorney to hire an attorney with expertise in the area that you need help with. And, like I mentioned before, we had two major termite claims at our house. And listening to Tom, I mean, there's so many things that I learned that I wished I'd known at that time, because now I'm questioning, what did we even have more damage than what we uncovered? And so, and a lot of attorneys like Tom, they will not charge you for that initial consultation. And so my takeaway is that, if you've got a question, call an attorney, and then find an attorney with expertise in the area that you need help with. And again, I wished I'd called Tom when I had those claims. And I just felt like, being an attorney, I knew how to handle these claims, but I learned so much talking with Tom. And again, I wished I'd consulted with him years ago when I had these termite claims.
yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you tuning in to the Trials Podcast. If you have questions or concerns, we're easy to find at GartlanInjuryLaw.com.